The air in Konoha tasted of ash and wet iron. It had been 3 days since the sky turned red and the earth shook under the paws of a god, yet the village still felt like an open wound. The rain had started at dawn, a cold, relentless drizzle that sought to wash away the blood, but only succeeded in turning the dust of ruined buildings into a slick, gray mud. Inside the Hokage tower, the silence was heavy enough to choke on. The usual bustle of Chunin and Jounin was gone, replaced by the hollow quiet of morning. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage, once again the only Hokage, stood by the window. He looked out at the village he had sworn to protect, counting the plumes of smoke that still curled from the residential districts. He felt old, older than the stone faces watching him from the mountain. The robes of office felt like a shroud. "The autopsy is complete," a voice rasped from the shadows. Hiruzen didn't turn. He knew Danzo Shimura was there. The man was a part of the darkness that always lingered in the corners of this room. And it is anomalous. Hiruzen turned then, his eyes narrowing. Danzo stood near the desk, his face bandaged, his good eye gleaming with a cold, predatory light. In his hand he held a vial, not a scroll. Inside, suspended in a clear preservation fluid, was a sample of tissue. It was green. Minato Namikaze was a prodigy, Danzo said, walking slowly toward the light. Speed, reflexes, chakra reserves that shamed entire clans. We attributed it to genius, to the random blessings of fate. He held the vial up to the candlelight. The green tissue seemed to pulse, faint and slow, like a dying heartbeat. We were wrong. "What am I looking at, Danzo?" Hiruzen asked, though a cold dread was already coiling in his stomach. "Cellular regeneration," Danzo replied. "This sample was taken from the wound on his chest, the claw mark left by the 9 tails. Normal flesh would be necrotic, dead, but look." Hiruzen stepped closer. He squinted. There, weaving through the preserved flesh, were microscopic tendrils, not veins, roots. Tiny, pale white roots knitting the devastating injury together even after death. "Mokuton," Hiruzen whispered, the word feeling forbidden on his tongue. "Would release." "The lineage of the Senju did not die with the first," Danzo said, his voice dropping to a reverent murmur. "It went underground, dormant, recessive genes hiding in the blood of commoners, waiting for the right spark to ignite them. Minato was a carrier, a sleeper." "He didn't know," Hiruzen said, sinking into his chair. "He never used it, never showed a sign." "He likely didn't have the reserves to awaken it fully until he became a sage," Danzo theorized. "Or perhaps it was the stress of the sealing, the chakra of the Kyuubi acting as a catalyst. It doesn't matter now. The father is dead." Danzo placed the vial on the desk with a heavy clack. "But the son lives." Hiruzen looked at the vial, then toward the direction of the hospital. "Naruto." "The boy is a Jinchuriki," Danzo said, his tone shifting from clinical to strategic. "A vessel for the strongest-tailed beast. That alone makes him a strategic asset. But if he possesses his father's genetic sequence, if he possesses the first legacy—" "He is a child, Danzo." Hiruzen slammed his hand on the desk, the sound echoing through the empty room. "An orphan. He has the burden of the demon in his belly. Do not speak of him as if he were a weapon to be forged." "He is a weapon," Danzo snapped, his composure cracking for a fraction of a second. "Konoha is on its knees. Kumo, Iwa, they smell blood in the water. We have lost our Hokage. We have lost our deterrent. If the boy manifests would release, he is not just a Jinchuriki. He is the second coming of the god of shinobi. He could rebuild the village. He could silence our enemies with a gesture." Danzo leaned over the desk, his single eye wide with intensity. "Give him to me, to root. I will train him. I will ensure he controls the beast. I will nurture the forest until it is strong enough to shield us all." Hiruzen looked at his old friend, seeing the hunger there. It wasn't just patriotism. It was obsession. Danzo had always envied the first's power. He had always sought to control what he could not understand. No, Hiruzen said. His voice was quiet, but it had the weight of iron. You are making a mistake, Danzo hissed. The boy will be emotional, unstable. If the wood release awakens and he cannot control it, if it reacts to the Kyuubi's chakra, he will not just destroy the village. He will become a monster of nature that we cannot kill. Then I will raise him, Hiruzen said. I will watch him. If the power awakens, we will deal with it. But we will deal with it as men of the leaf, with the will of fire, not the darkness of the root. He reached out and took the vial. This conversation is over. Seal the records, Danzo. Minato's lineage dies in this room. If I hear a whisper of this in the streets, I will know who spoke it. Danzo stared at him for a long moment. Then he straightened his robe. You are soft, Hiruzen. You plant a seed in a garden and hope it becomes a flower. But this, he gestured to the vial, this is a strangler fig. It will grow. It will consume. And when it breaks the cage you build for it, do not say I did not warn you. Danzo turned and walked out, his footsteps fading into the shadows of the hallway. Hiruzen remained alone in the dim office. He held the vial tightly, feeling the impossible warmth radiating from the dead tissue. A verdant legacy, he murmured to the empty room. He stood and walked to the window again, looking toward the hospital where the infant Naruto lay sleeping. He imagined the chakra coiling inside the boy, the burning orange hatred of the fox, and now, wrapping around it, the silent green patience of the forest. Rest in peace, Minato, Hiruzen whispered into the rain. I will protect him from the world, from Danzo, and most of all from himself. He turned back to the desk, formed a seal, and ignited a small fire in his palm. He held the vial over the flame until the glass cracked and the fluid boiled away, reducing the last proof of the Fourth Hokage secret to nothing but smoke. The Konoha Academy was designed to be a factory. It took in soft, pliable children and hammered them into steel tools for the village. But for Naruto Uzumaki, it felt less like a factory and more like a cage. At 7 years old, Naruto had already learned the two most important lessons of his life. Visibility was dangerous, and silence was impossible. Concentrate, Naruto, it's not that hard. Iruka Yumino's voice cracked across the classroom like a whip. The Chunin instructor stood at the front of the room, rubbing his temples as if trying to massage away a migraine that had Uzumaki written all over it. Naruto stood at his desk, his hands clasped together in the ram seal, his knuckles white with effort. Sweat beaded on his forehead. He squeezed his eyes shut, trying to find that slippery, warm current of energy inside him that everyone else seemed to grab so easily. Come on, he pleaded silently. Just one clone, just a puffy little smoke cloud version of me, anything. Bunshin no jutsu, he shouted, throwing his energy outward. There was a poof, sad and wet, like a deflating balloon. Instead of a duplicate, a pale, limp scarecrow of smoke flopped onto the floor next to him. It looked less like a ninja and more like a dying squid. The class erupted. Nice one, dead last, Kiba and Yuzuka howled, slapping his desk. Akamaru barked in agreement from inside his jacket. He can't even make a solid illusion, Sakura Haruno whispered to Ino, loud enough for half the room to hear. It's embarrassing to sit near him. Naruto felt the familiar burn of shame rise up his neck, turning his ears red. He kicked the smoke clone and it dissipated into a gray haze. Shut up, I put too much power into it, that's all. Next time I'll make 100. Sit down, Naruto, Iruka sighed, marking a red F on his clipboard. Just sit down. Naruto slumped into his seat. He glared at the back of Sasuke Uchiha's head, perfect and spiky, sitting in the front row. Sasuke had produced 3 flawless clones without breaking a sweat. It wasn't fair. It felt like everyone else had a faucet for chakra, while Naruto was trying to drink from a fire hose that he couldn't turn on. Recess was worse. The academy courtyard was a theater of noise, shouts of tag, the thwack of practice shuriken hitting targets, the gossip of cliques forming and breaking. Naruto was always in the cheap seats. He sat on the low branch of a gnarled oak tree at the absolute edge of the playground, swinging his legs. His orange jacket was a loud scream in a world that preferred him silent. He pulled a crumpled onigiri from his pocket, store-bought, slightly stale, and picked at the wrapper. "Hey, look, the freak is eating garbage again." Naruto stopped chewing. He didn't need to look up to know who it was. Hibachi. The boy was 2 years older, held back a year for behavioral issues, which mostly meant he liked hurting things smaller than him. He was flanked by 2 lackeys who mimicked his sneer with practiced ease. "Go away, Hibachi," Naruto mumbled, staring at a crack in the stone retaining wall opposite him. "I'm busy." "Busy doing what? Being a loser." Hibachi stepped closer, kicking the trunk of the tree. The vibration rattled Naruto's teeth. "My dad works in the logistics office. He says the Hokage pays for your apartment out of the charity fund. He says you're a leech." "I'm not a leech," Naruto snapped, hopping down from the branch. He was shorter than Hibachi, but he puffed out his chest, trying to look big. "I'm going to be Hokage one day. Then you'll all have to respect me." Hibachi laughed, a cruel barking sound. He picked up a handful of gravel from the path. "You, Hokage, you can't even make a clone, you're just a waste of space. A jinx." He threw the gravel. It wasn't a hard throw, but the stones were sharp. They peppered Naruto's face and chest. One cut his cheek, a thin line of red welling up. It didn't hurt much. Naruto was used to scraped knees and lonely nights, but the insult stung deeper than the stones. A waste of space. "Stop it," Naruto said, his voice trembling. "Make me demon brat." Hibachi shoved him. Naruto stumbled back, hitting the rough stone wall. Something snapped. It wasn't the hot, red rage he sometimes felt, the one that terrified him, the one that felt like a beast pacing in a cage. This was different. It was a cold, deep pressure in the pit of his stomach. It felt heavy, ancient. Naruto looked at his hands. He felt full. "I said stop it." Naruto slammed his foot onto the ground. He didn't mean to channel chakra. He didn't weave a sign. He just wanted the world to stop pushing him. But the ground answered. A deep thrum vibrated through the soles of his sandals. It wasn't the sound of earth cracking. It was the sound of something waking up. Hibachi and his friends froze as the soil between the cobblestones suddenly turned dark and rich. The air grew thick, smelling instantly of ozone and crushed pine needles, damp and overwhelming. "What the?" Hibachi stepped back, his eyes wide. From the crack in the stone wall, the dead, gray mortar Naruto had been staring at, life erupted. It started as a pale green tendril, shooting out faster than a kunai. In a heartbeat, it thickened, turning into a woody vine as thick as a man's arm. It didn't attack the boys. Instead, it slammed into the wall, branching out like a bolt of lightning made of timber. Creak, snap, bloom. The sound was mesmerizing. The vine wove itself into the stone, knitting the cracks together. And then the flowers came. They weren't the polite daisies of the village. These were wild, primal things. Huge white lilies with petals that looked like polished bone unfurled in seconds. Beside them, glowing blue creepers twisted around the oak tree, their bioluminescence pulsing in time with Naruto's own racing heart. In 10 seconds, the ugly gray corner of the playground had been consumed by a vibrant, terrifyingly beautiful pocket of deep forest. Naruto stood in the center of it, panting. The cut on his cheek was already closing, knitting itself together with faint wisps of steam. He stared at the vine next to his hand. It felt warm. It felt like a handshake. He's a monster," one of the lackeys screamed. "He did some freaky jutsu." Hibachi looked pale. He scrambled backward, tripping over his own feet. "My dad was right. He's not human. Let's go." The bullies ran. They didn't look back. Naruto was left alone in his sudden garden. The adrenaline crashed out of him, leaving him hollow and shaking. He reached out. his fingers brushing the velvety petal of a giant white lily. "I didn't mean to," he whispered to the flower. "I just wanted them to stop." The flower didn't answer, but the vine seemed to curl slightly around his finger, a silent comfort. 50 meters away, hidden in the shadows of the academy eaves, Hinata Hyuga stood frozen. She had been watching him. She always watched him. It was her secret, her only rebellion against a life that felt planned out to the second. In the Hyuga compound, everything was white and gray. White eyes, white robes, gray stones, cold expectations. Naruto was orange. He was loud, he was messy. She had seen Hibachi corner him. She had felt the familiar tightening in her chest, the urge to run out, to yell, to do something. But her feet had felt like lead. "I'm weak," she had told herself, just like father says. Then the world had bloomed. Hinata's Byakugan wasn't active. She was too young to control it fully, but she didn't need it to see the chakra. It hung in the air, thick and potent. But unlike the terrifying stories the adults whispered about the demon child, this power didn't feel angry. It felt lonely and desperate to live. She looked at the white lilies. They were the most beautiful things she had ever seen. In a village of stone and steel, Naruto had created life out of nothing. He isn't a destroyer, Hinata thought, her heart hammering against her ribs. He's a creator. She watched him touch the flower, saw the gentle way his hand lingered. She saw the sadness in his shoulders, a mirror of her own. "Naruto-kun," she whispered, the name barely a breath. She reached into her pocket, her fingers brushing a small tube of ointment, for the bruises she got during training and the ones she imagined he had. She took a step forward. "Hinata-sama." A sharp voice cut through the air. Ko, her bodyguard, landed silently beside her. "The head is expecting you. Training begins in 5 minutes. You are dallying." Hinata jumped, shrinking back into her oversized jacket. She looked back at the courtyard, but Naruto was already climbing down, looking at his hands with confusion. I'm coming, Ko," she stammered. As she was led away, she looked back one last time. The patch of impossible forest remained, a vibrant stain on the gray world. She vowed to remember it. She vowed to remember that the boy everyone called a monster was the only one who could make the stones bloom. Later that evening, the Hokage office. Iruka Umino stood at attention, though his usual composure was frayed. "Hokage-sama, I saw it. I swear on my headband." Hiruzen Sarutobi sat in his chair, pipe smoke curling around his weathered face. He looked tired, more tired than usual. "Tell me exactly what happened, Iruka." "It was spontaneous," Iruka reported. "He was distressed, bullied by some older students. He didn't weave signs, he just stomped, and the ground reacted." "Earth style?" Hiruzen asked, though he already knew the answer. "No, sir," Iruka hesitated. "Vegetation, vines, flowers, they grew out of solid mortar in seconds. I checked the wall after class. The roots, they're fused with the stone. It's as strong as steel. The sheer vitality of it. I've never seen anything like it." Hiruzen closed his eyes. "It's starting," he thought, "sooner than Danzo predicted." "Is the boy aware of what he did?" "I don't think so," Iruka said. "He looked terrified. He tried to replicate it later during cleanup duty. I watched him staring at a potted plant for 10 minutes, but nothing happened. It seems tied to his emotional state." Hiruzen tapped his pipe on the ashtray. "And the other students?" "They ran away. They think it was just a freaky jutsu. But the older teachers, some of them saw the remnants. They're whispering Lord Third. They're remembering the stories of the first." "Let them whisper," Hiruzen said, his voice hardening. "But tell the maintenance crew to clear that wall tonight. Burn the roots. Leave no trace." Iruka blinked, surprised. "Burn it? But sir, if Naruto has a Kekkei Genkai, shouldn't we be training him, nurturing it?" "If we nurture it, Iruka, we paint a target on his back larger than the one he already wears," Hiruzen said. "Konoha is at peace, but it is a fragile peace. If Iwa or Kumo learns we have a potential wood release user, they will stop at nothing to kill him or steal him. Hiruzen stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the village lights. Naruto must remain just the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki for now. That is a threat the world understands, a threat they fear but respect. But the wood release, that is the power to tame tailed beasts. That is the power of a god. The world will not tolerate a second Hashirama unless he is strong enough to defend himself. He turned back to Iruka. Keep an eye on him. If he does it again, you intervene, you distract, you cover it up. Do you understand? Iruka clenched his jaw, conflicted. He thought of the lonely boy in the swing. He just wants to be acknowledged, Lord Third. This power, it could be the thing that makes the village see him as a hero, not a demon. Or it could be the thing that gets him locked in a root cellar for the rest of his life, Hiruzen warned darkly. Iruka went cold, he nodded stiffly. Understood, Hokage-sama. Dismissed. When Iruka left, Hiruzen opened his desk drawer. He pulled out the same report Danzo had shown him 7 years ago. He stared at the name Minato Namikaze. You left me a difficult puzzle, Minato, Hiruzen sighed. He looked at the crystal ball on his desk. Through the glass he saw Naruto sitting on his swing, alone in the moonlight, staring at his hands. The boy looked frustrated, trying to squeeze chakra out of his fingertips, but only a faint, erratic fizzle appeared. Bloom later, Naruto, Hiruzen whispered. For now, stay a weed, weeds survive. The swing night. Naruto gave up. He let his hands drop to his sides. He had been trying for an hour to make the plant grow again. He had yelled at the grass. He had stomped until his heel hurt. He had even tried politely asking the tree to make a flower. Nothing. Stupid, Naruto muttered, wiping his nose on his sleeve. It was just a fluke, probably just a weird glitch or something. He looked at the moon. It was full and bright, mocking him. I'm not a monster, he told the moon. I'm gonna be Hokage, and then I'll make a whole forest. A forest so big nobody can ever kick me out of it. He jumped off the swing and started walking home to his empty apartment. As he walked, he didn't notice that where his feet touched the dry, dusty path, tiny blades of grass were springing up in his wake, green and vibrant in the silver light. The swing was cold. It was always cold, or maybe that was just Naruto. The sun was setting on the day of the graduation exam, casting long, bruised shadows across the academy grounds. The air was filled with the sickeningly sweet sound of happiness. Parents swarmed the entrance, hugging their children, pointing at shiny new forehead protectors that glinted in the twilight. Congratulations, you did it. I knew you had it in you. Let's go get barbecue to celebrate. Naruto sat alone, clutching his goggles so hard the plastic creaked. His forehead was bare. He had failed again. The Bunshin no Jutsu. It was always the Bunshin, a simple E-rank technique that every other student, even the ones who slept through history class, had mastered. But for Naruto, it was like trying to thread a needle with a sledgehammer. His chakra was too big, too wild. It tore the delicate illusion apart before it could even form. He looked at the ground, counting the pebbles near his feet. 1, 2, 3, dead last. Naruto. He didn't look up. He knew that voice. It was the only voice in the village that didn't sound like broken glass. Go away, Iruka-sensei, Naruto muttered, kicking at the dirt. I don't want a lecture. Iruka sighed, the sound heavy with his own disappointment. He walked over and sat on the empty swing next to Naruto's. The chains creaked under his weight. I'm not here to lecture you. I wanted to see if you were okay. I'm fine, Naruto lied. His voice cracked, betraying him. I don't care about being a ninja anyway. Who needs it? I'll just go become a hermit or something. Naruto. Leave me alone. Naruto jumped off the swing, tears hot and stinging in his eyes. He couldn't stand the pity. Pity was worse than hate. Hate at least meant you existed. Pity meant you were broken. He ran before Iruka could see them fall. He ran until his lungs burned, scrambling up the side of a building and collapsing on a rooftop overlooking the village that didn't want him. Tough break, huh? Naruto wiped his eyes on his sleeve and turned. Mizuki was leaning against a chimney, his silver hair catching the dying light. He was smiling, but it wasn't Iruka's warm, worried smile. It was sharp, calculated, like a kunai wrapped in silk. Mizuki-sensei, Naruto sniffled, trying to look tough. Iruka is tough on you, Mizuki said, walking over to sit beside him. But it's because he sees himself in you. He's an orphan too, you know. He wants you to be strong. He doesn't understand, Naruto said bitterly. He just thinks I'm a screw-up. Everyone does. Maybe, Mizuki shrugged. Or maybe he's just afraid of your potential. Naruto blinked. The word felt foreign. My potential. Mizuki crouched down, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. Let me tell you a secret, Naruto. The exam, the Bunshin no Jutsu, it's rigged against you. The academy teaches a standard style, a style for average people. He poked Naruto's chest. But you're not average, are you? I've seen you. I've seen how much chakra you have. It's an ocean, Naruto. Asking you to make a delicate clone is like asking a tsunami to fill a teacup. Naruto sat up straighter. So, it's not my fault. Of course not, Mizuki grinned. The village. They don't want you to succeed. They're afraid of what you really are. They're afraid that if you learn the real techniques, you'll be stronger than all of them. What I really am, Naruto felt a chill that had nothing to do with the wind. He remembered the flowers in the courtyard, the way Hibachi had looked at him. Monster. You have power, Naruto. Ancient power, Mizuki said, his eyes gleaming. But the Hokage hides it. He locks it away in a scroll, terrified that if you learn it, you'll surpass him. A scroll. The scroll of sealing, Mizuki whispered. It's in the Hokage's residence. If you can get it, if you can learn just one jutsu from it, Iruka will have to pass you. The Hokage will have to acknowledge you. You can prove them all wrong. Naruto's heart hammered against his ribs. A way to pass. A way to show them all that I'm not a failure. Really? Really, Mizuki said. Show them, Naruto. Show them the real you. Stealing the scroll was suspiciously easy. Or maybe Naruto was just that good. He used the sexy jutsu on the third Hokage, a technique he had invented himself, which he was ironically proud of. The old man had gone down with a nosebleed so severe Naruto thought he might have killed him. While the Hokage was incapacitated, Naruto grabbed the massive scroll from the altar and bolted. He didn't stop running until he reached the deepest part of the forest, a clearing bathed in silver moonlight. He sat down, panting, and unrolled the scroll. It was heavy, the parchment thick and smelling of old ink and ozone. Okay, Naruto muttered, scanning the text. Let's see. Multi-shadow clone jutsu, boring, exploding dragon flame, too dangerous, summoning, impure world, you creepy. His finger stopped on a section near the end. The ink here seemed darker, almost wet. The paper around it was warped, as if it had been exposed to water. The kanji for wood, Mokuton, was written in a fierce, jagged calligraphy that seemed to vibrate on the page. Secret art, deep forest emergence, Naruto squinted. That sounds cool. He started to read the hand signs. Snake, ram, hare, dog, snake. As he formed the first sign, he felt a jolt. It wasn't like the academy jutsu where he had to force his chakra into a shape. This felt magnetic. The moment his fingers locked into the snake seal, the forest around him seemed to wake up. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves. The ground beneath his feet felt softer, more welcoming. Snake, ram, Naruto mumbled, his brow furrowed. It feels heavy. It was exhausting. Just reading the seals made his head spin. It felt like the scroll was drinking his chakra, pulling it out of him to fuel the ink. Naruto. He jumped, dropping the scroll. Iruka landed in the clearing, breathless and angry. His vest was disheveled, his eyes wide with panic. "What are you doing? You stole the scroll of sealing. That's a serious crime. The ANBU are looking for you." "Iruka-sensei," Naruto held up the scroll, grinning nervously though he was swaying on his feet. "I did it. I learned a jutsu. Well, I'm trying to. Mizuki-sensei said if I learned one, I'd pass." Iruka froze. The color drained from his face. "Mizuki." Swish. A barrage of kunai flew from the darkness. Iruka didn't think. He moved. He shoved Naruto aside, throwing his body over the boys. Thud, thud, thud. Iruka gasped, his body jerking as the blades found their mark. One in the leg, one in the shoulder, one grazing his ribcage. "Iruka-sensei," Naruto screamed, scrambling out from under him. Mizuki stepped out from behind a tree, 2 giant shurikens strapped to his back. He wasn't smiling anymore. He looked bored. "Good job, Naruto," Mizuki sneered. "Now hand over the scroll." "Why?" Iruka gritted his teeth, blood trickling from his mouth. He pulled the kunai from his leg with a sickening squelch. "Mizuki, why?" "Because I need that power, you idiot," Mizuki laughed. "And I'm going to use the demon brat to get it. Then I'll kill him and the village will thank me." "Demon?" Naruto whispered. "Oh, you don't know." Mizuki's eyes went wide with mock surprise. "No one told you, the law forbids it. But I'll tell you. The reason everyone hates you, the reason you have no parents, the reason you're alone." "Stop it, Mizuki," Iruka yelled, trying to stand but collapsing back down. "Inside you," Mizuki pointed a finger at Naruto, "is the 9-tailed fox that destroyed the village." Naruto's world stopped. The images flashed in his mind like a broken film reel. The cold glares, the whispers, the parents pulling their children away, the mask shop owner throwing him out. "It makes sense, it all makes sense. I'm not a boy, I'm the monster." "You're the 9 tails," Mizuki shouted. "And Iruka hates you for it. The fox killed his parents. He's been pretending this whole time." Naruto looked up at Iruka. The man was bleeding, shaking. "He hates me. Everyone hates me." "Die." Mizuki grabbed a giant shuriken and threw it. Naruto couldn't move. The fear paralyzed him. He was just a demon. Demons deserve to die. Thunk. Iruka didn't move either. He just covered Naruto deeper. The shuriken buried itself in Iruka's back. "Why?" Naruto sobbed. "Why are you protecting me?" Blood dripped onto Naruto's cheek. Iruka smiled, tears mixing with the blood. "Because we're the same. I was alone too, Naruto. I acted out to get attention. I know how it feels to be lonely, to hurt inside." He looked Naruto in the eye. "You're not the fox, you're Naruto Uzumaki. You're my student, and you're a hell of a ninja." Something inside Naruto broke, and then something else woke up. It wasn't the red chakra of the fox. It wasn't the cold fear. It was the feeling from the courtyard, amplified 1,000 times. It was the feeling of life refusing to die. It was the forest responding to a call for help. "Don't touch him," Naruto whispered. Mizuki laughed, reaching for his second shuriken. "Oh, how touching. I'll bury you both together." Naruto stood up. The scroll lay forgotten on the ground. He didn't need it. He didn't need hand signs. He just needed to protect Iruka. He slapped his hands together. A cloud of dust kicked up around him. "I said," Naruto looked up, his eyes slitted, not red but a vibrant, glowing green. "Don't touch MY-sensei." Crack! The ground exploded. It wasn't a clone, it wasn't smoke. 3 massive roots, thick as tree trunks, burst from the earth beneath Mizuki's feet. They moved with the speed of a striking snake. Mizuki didn't even have time to scream. One root slammed into his chest, shattering the giant shuriken on his back. Another wrapped around his waist, squeezing the air out of him. The third rose up like a cobra, looming over him. What is this?" Mizuki gasped, dangling 10 feet in the air, crushed by the living wood. This is the firsts." Naruto stood in the center of the clearing. The grass around him had grown to his waist in seconds. Saplings were sprouting from his footprints. He was panting, his hands still clasped together. "Get away from him," Naruto growled. The root threw Mizuki. He flew through the air, crashing through 3 trees before hitting a rock face and sliding down, unconscious. Silence fell over the clearing. Iruka stared at the giant roots. They were gnarled, powerful, and terrifying. They were the stuff of legends. He looked at Naruto. The boy was swaying. The green glow in his eyes faded, replaced by his usual blue. He looked at his hands, then at the roots. Naruto wobbled. "I did it again." He collapsed. Iruka caught him before he hit the ground. He looked at the unconscious boy, then at the wreckage of the forest floor. "Would release," Iruka whispered, stroking Naruto's hair. "God help us." He looked at the scroll. He picked it up and tied it to his back. Then he took off his own forehead protector. When Naruto woke up an hour later, the sun was rising. Iruka was leaning against a tree, bandaged up. "Sensei," Naruto rubbed his eyes. Did I beat him?" "You saved me, Naruto," Iruka said softly. "You were amazing." "But I made the trees go crazy," Naruto looked down. "I'm a freak." "No," Iruka said. "Close your eyes." Naruto closed them. He felt something cold and metal being tied around his forehead. "Open them." Naruto touched the metal plate. It was Iruka's headband. "Congratulations," Iruka smiled. "You pass," and Naruto. "Yeah. That wasn't a freak accident. That was the will of fire. It's strong in you. Maybe stronger than anyone knows." Naruto teared up, tackling Iruka in a hug. "Iruka-sensei." Hidden in the trees, Hiruzen Sarutobi watched through his telescope. He lowered it, his face grim. "The seed has sprouted," he said to the empty air. "Now the storm begins." The Hokage office was veiled in the blue, sickly light of pre-dawn. It was a time when the village felt most like a ghost, the silence of the streets filtering through the heavy stone walls. Inside, the smell of old paper, stale tobacco, and cold ink clung to the air like a second skin. Hiruzen Sarutobi did not look like the god of shinobi this morning. He looked like an old man whose bones had finally realized the weight of the mountain they were carved into. He sat hunched over his desk, his fingers tracing the jagged calligraphy of a medical report. Across from him, leaning against the doorframe with a practiced, lazy indifference, stood Kakashi Hadake. His hands were shoved deep into his pockets, his single visible eye half closed as if he were dreaming on his feet. "You've seen the reports, Kakashi," Hiruzen said, his voice a low, dry grate. He didn't look up. "Mizuki is in the hospital. 2 ribs crushed, a punctured lung, and a psychological trauma report that suggests he's developed a sudden, violent phobia of anything with a pulse and a leaf," Kakashi said. His voice was light, but there was no humor in it. The boy didn't just beat him. He nearly reclaimed him for the earth. "It isn't a joke, Kakashi," Hiruzen snapped, finally looking up. The fire in his eyes was cold, a remnant of a younger, fiercer man. It was Mokuton, real, instinctive, and violent. Iruka's description wasn't of a technique, it was of a catastrophe. The ground didn't just break, it unfolded. Kakashi straightened, the laziness vanishing. The gravity in the room shifted, the air becoming heavy with the pressure of 2 high-level shinobi discussing a potential disaster. "I know," Iruka said. The vitality was overwhelming. He said for a moment the clearing didn't feel like Konoha. It felt like the primal forest. Kakashi paused, his gaze drifting to the window, toward the hospital where a silver-haired traitor lay screaming in his sleep. "I thought the lineage was dead, Lord Third. I thought the Senju blood had thinned until it was just a story we told to keep the genin inspired." "So did I," Hiruzen sighed, leaning back. The chair creaked, a lonely sound in the quiet office. "But the forest is stubborn. It doesn't die, it just waits. It found a way to survive in Minato's blood, dormant and silent, hidden behind the flash of his speed. And now Naruto is carrying both, the burning hatred of the fox and the silent, hungry patience of the forest. Hiruzen stood up, his joints popping. He walked to the window, looking out at the village he had seen burn and rise and burn again. I am assigning him to you, Kakashi, not just because of your skill, but because of your history. You were Minato's student. You are the only one left who can look at that boy and see the father's face instead of the demon's mask. And my orders. Protect him, Hiruzen said, his voice turning into iron. From the village elders who will want to hide him, from Danzo who will want to forge him, and most of all, protect him from the power itself. If the Mokuton reacts to the Kyuubi's chakra, if they merge, we won't be looking at a Hokage. We'll be looking at a force of nature that cannot be reasoned with. Kakashi bowed his head, his silver hair casting a long shadow over his headband. Understood. I'll see if the kid can even catch a bell before I start worrying about him turning into a mountain. The meeting at Training Ground 7 was loud. Naruto Uzumaki was vibrating. He was wearing his orange jacket, a color Kakashi found personally offensive to the concept of stealth, and his new forehead protector was tied so tight it looked like it might pop his head off. He was currently trying to engage a brooding Sasuke Uchiha in a staring contest. Sasuke was winning by virtue of simply staring through Naruto as if he were a pane of glass. Sakura Haruno stood between them, looking like she wanted to be anywhere else, preferably somewhere involving Sasuke and a total lack of orange-clad idiots. Yo, Kakashi said, appearing in a swirl of leaves that settled perfectly on the grass. Sorry I'm late. A black cat crossed my path, so I had to take the long way around. Liar, Naruto and Sakura screamed. Kakashi ignored them, his eyes scanning the trio. He lingered on Naruto. The boy looked normal, loud, obnoxious, hungry for attention. But Kakashi could feel it now. The background hum of his chakra wasn't just the jagged, hot energy of a Jinchuriki. It had a subterranean depth to it, a cool, damp resonance that felt like deep, ancient earth. Okay, Kakashi said, pulling out 2 bells. They jingled with a sharp, clear sound. The rules are simple. Take these bells from me by noon or you're going back to the academy. You have to come at me with the intent to kill or you won't stand a chance. But sensei, that's dangerous, Sakura cried, her hands fluttering. Yeah, well, being a ninja is dangerous, Kakashi shrugged. If you wanted safety, you should have stayed in the academy and learned how to file paperwork. Start. Swish. Sasuke and Sakura vanished into the brush, their movements clean and professional. Naruto, predictably, stayed exactly where he was. He stood in the middle of the clearing, his hands clenched into fists. I'm not going back, Naruto shouted. I'm gonna be Hokage, you're just a stepping stone, Scarecrow-sensei. Is that so? Kakashi pulled out a small orange book. Ika Paradise. Then show me, I'll even give you a head start. Don't mock me, Naruto charged. He didn't use kunai, he didn't use a clone, he slammed his palms onto the grass. Mokuton, root snare. Kakashi blinked. He didn't see a giant forest erupt. There was no roar of timber. Instead, a faint, rhythmic thrum vibrated through the ground. It was subtle. If Kakashi hadn't been warned, he might have missed it. He moved. It was a purely instinctive flinch. He jumped backward, his sandals clearing the grass by inches. From the exact spot where his feet had been, 3 thin, flexible roots shot out of the dirt. They weren't tree trunks. They were more like whips, gnarled and covered in tiny, grasping thorns. They missed him by a hair, snapping at the air before retracting into the earth as quickly as they had appeared. Impressive, Kakashi thought, landing on a branch 10 feet up. He didn't try to overpower me with a forest. He tried to catch me off guard with a snare. He's thinking about the terrain. Darn it, Naruto grumbled, wiping sweat from his brow. He looked genuinely exhausted. I almost had you. That worked on the dummy at home. Almost only counts in horseshoes and exploding tags, Naruto, Kakashi said, though his heart was hammering. That little snare had been silent. If he had been a second slower, his ankles would have been shredded. He looked down at the grass. It was greener where Naruto had touched it. Richer. "You're wide open." Naruto charged again, but this time he tried to force it. He slapped his hands against a nearby oak tree. Mokuton, wall, thingy. Nothing happened. Or rather, something happened, but it wasn't a wall. A massive, bloated knot of wood erupted from the trunk of the tree, looking like a giant wooden tumor. It grew 3 feet and then simply stopped, dripping a thick, amber sap. Naruto fell to his knees, panting. "Your chakra control is a mess," Kakashi said, appearing behind him. He tapped Naruto on the back of the head with his book. "You're trying to pull from the deep well, but you're forgetting the bucket. You're just dumping raw energy into the world and hoping it becomes a shape. That's not a jutsu, that's a tantrum." "Shut up," Naruto struggled to stand, his face turning red. "I'll get those bells, I'll be the best ninja ever." The test continued for hours. Kakashi played with them, drifting through the forest like a ghost. He watched Sasuke's clinical precision, the boy's movements sharp and lethal. He watched Sakura's perfect, if timid, chakra control as she hid in the bushes. But his eye always returned to Naruto. Every time Naruto got frustrated, the ground around him would react. The grass would grow an inch taller in seconds. A nearby sapling would suddenly sprout a new branch to slap Kakashi away. It was like the boy was an antenna for the planet's vitality, and he couldn't turn the signal off. Sasuke was watching too. Kakashi saw it from the shadows. The Uchiha was hiding behind a rock, his dark eyes fixed on Naruto. He had seen the root snare. He had seen the way the forest seemed to favor the blonde idiot. Kakashi could practically smell the jealousy coming off him, a bitter, cold scent. Finally, it was noon. The trio sat tied to the logs, looking defeated and filthy. Naruto was covered in sap and dirt, his hair a mess of leaves. "You guys are pathetic," Kakashi said, leaning against the center log. He had tucked his book away. "You don't understand the first thing about being a ninja. You don't even understand the first thing about the kid sitting next to you." "What?" Naruto growled, his stomach letting out a loud, pathetic roar. "We tried everything. I even tried to make a wooden cage." "You tried as individuals," Kakashi said. "Sasuke, you thought Naruto was a nuisance. Sakura, you were so focused on Sasuke that you didn't even notice Naruto was burning through his life force trying to help you. And Naruto, you were so focused on showing off your new power that you didn't even notice your teammates were the ones giving you openings." Kakashi walked over to the stone monument, the memorial for those who had died for the village. He placed a hand on the cool stone. "In the ninja world, those who break the rules are scum, but those who abandon their comrades are worse than scum." He looked at Naruto, then at Sasuke. "Naruto, this power you have, it's not a trick to pass an exam. It's the blood of the First Hokage. It's a responsibility that could either save this village or burn it to the ground. If you use it to show off, you'll die. If you use it to protect your friends, you might just survive." He turned back to them, his eyes softening into a look that was almost paternal. "Eat, but don't give any to Naruto or you'll fail. That's an order." Kakashi vanished in a swirl of leaves. Naruto's stomach groaned again, a long, mournful sound. He looked at the floor, miserable. "I messed it up. I'm going back to the academy. I'm just a freak who can make trees grow." Sasuke looked at his lunch box. He looked at the monument. Then he looked at Naruto. He held out a piece of grilled fish. "Here, take it." "Sasuke-kun," Sakura gasped, her eyes wide. "Sensei said." "He's useless if he's hungry," Sasuke said, his voice cold but his eyes fixed on the yellow wildflowers starting to sprout around the base of Naruto's log. "And if we're going to try again, I need him to be more than a distraction. Take it dead last, before I change my mind." Sakura hesitated, looking at the forest where Kakashi had disappeared. Then she looked at Naruto's tear-streaked face. She held out her own lunch. He's right. Here, Naruto. We're a team, right? Naruto teared up, his lower lip trembling. You guys, you're actually giving me food. Poof! The sky seemed to turn black. Kakashi appeared in a massive cloud of smoke, his chakra flaring until the ground beneath him cracked. He looked terrifying, his silver hair standing on end. You! The trio screamed, huddling together against the logs. Naruto tried to shield Sakura. Sasuke stood his ground, though his hands were shaking. You! Kakashi's aura vanished instantly. He leaned forward, his eye crinkling into a genuine, warm smile. You pass. Team 7 starts its first mission tomorrow. Naruto cheered, the sound echoing through the training ground. As he yelled, the ground beneath his feet didn't just sprout grass. It erupted in a dozen tiny, vibrant yellow wildflowers that smelled of honey and spring. Kakashi watched the flowers, a cold shiver running down his spine. He remembered the graves he had visited that morning. Minato, your son is a garden in a graveyard. I hope I'm strong enough to keep the weeds away. Later that evening, the Uchiha district. Sasuke Uchiha sat on his porch, staring at the empty streets of his clan's district. The silence here was a physical weight, a reminder of everything he had lost. He held a small wooden splinter in his hand. He had picked it up from the training ground. It was part of the wall Naruto had tried to make. Even now, hours after it had been separated from the tree, it felt warm. It felt alive. He's an orphan too, Sasuke thought, but he doesn't have shadows, he has flowers. He clenched his fist, crushing the splinter. I won't let you get ahead of me, Naruto, he whispered to the moon. Whatever that power is, I'll find a way to surpass it. I have to, for them. In the distance, the sound of Naruto's laughter echoed faintly from the direction of the ramen shop, a vibrant, orange sound in the quiet night. The gates of Konoha always felt like the edge of the world to Naruto. They stood tall and imposing, two massive slabs of wood and steel that marked the boundary between the safety of the village and the vast, unpredictable wild beyond. As Team 7 walked through them, escorted by the grumbling bridge builder Tazuna, Naruto felt a jolt of electricity run down his spine. This was it. A real mission. A C rank, even if the Hokage had looked suspiciously reluctant to sign the paperwork. I'm a ninja, Naruto shouted to the sky, his hands behind his head. Look out, world, Naruto Uzumaki is on the move. Shut up, Naruto, Sakura hissed, though she looked equally nervous. Her hands were fidgeting with the strap of her pack. You're going to attract every bandit within 5 miles. Let him yell, Sakura, Kakashi said, his eye crinkling as he looked at a small guidebook in his hand. It's good to have spirit, just keep your eyes on the road. Sasuke didn't say anything. He walked with his hands in his pockets, his gaze fixed on the path ahead. But his ears were pricked, his body wound like a coiled spring. Since the bell test, he had been quieter than usual. He kept stealing glances at Naruto's hands, as if expecting roots to sprout from his fingernails at any moment. Tazuna took a long swig from his bottle and wiped his mouth. Are you kids really supposed to protect me? The blonde one looks like he can barely protect his own lunch. Hey, I'll have you know I beat a Chunin, Naruto barked, but his voice trailed off as he saw Kakashi's sharp look. Control, Kakashi had whispered to him that morning. The forest is silent until it isn't. The attack happened near a puddle. It hadn't rained in days. The ground was dry, the dust of the road puffing up with every step. So when Kakashi saw a shimmering pool of water in the middle of the path, his heart didn't just skip, it signaled a full-scale alert. 1-2. Two chains, serrated and gleaming, erupted from the water. They wrapped around Kakashi with the speed of a snapping trap. Before Naruto could even draw a kunai, the chains tightened, and Kakashi was torn to pieces. Kakashi-sensei, Sakura screamed. Two figures emerged from the shadows, the demon brothers of the mist. They were covered in jagged armor, their faces hidden behind breathing masks. One of them turned toward Naruto, his chain whistling through the air. "One down," the mercenary hissed. "Next is the brat." Naruto froze. The world seemed to slow down. He could see the rust on the chain links. He could hear the heavy thud of his own heart. He tried to reach for his chakra, that deep, subterranean well he had found in the forest. He wanted to call the roots. He wanted the earth to rise up and swallow these men. But the chakra didn't come. It felt stuck. It was like trying to pull a heavy anchor out of thick mud. He felt the weight of it in his gut, a cold, leaden mass that refused to move. The chain came closer, a silver blur of death. Clang! Sasuke appeared in front of him. He had jammed a shuriken into the chain's link, pinning it to a tree. He kicked the second brother in the face, sending him reeling. "Naruto, move!" Sasuke yelled. Naruto stumbled back, his hands shaking. He felt useless. "Why won't it work? I did it before. I saved Iruka-sensei." Sakura stepped in front of Tazuna, her kunai held high. "Stay back." The demon brother recovered, his eyes narrowing through his mask. He swung his clawed gauntlet at Naruto's throat. Snap! A single, thin root burst from the ground between them. It wasn't a trunk or a whip. It was a gnarled, twisted thing that looked like an arthritic finger. It caught the gauntlet, holding it for a fraction of a second, just enough time for Naruto to duck. But the root was weak. It didn't crush the arm, it simply shattered under the pressure. "Pathetic," the mercenary sneered. Poof! A cloud of smoke erupted behind the brothers. Kakashi appeared, his hands locking their heads together in a brutal slam. He had replaced himself with a log, the classic substitution. "Nice work, Sasuke." "Sakura, good positioning," Kakashi said, his voice flat and dangerous. He looked at the two unconscious mercenaries, then at Naruto. Naruto was staring at the shattered remains of the root. He felt a deep, hollow ache in his chest. "Naruto," Kakashi said, walking over. "Are you hurt?" "No," Naruto whispered. I tried, Sensei, but it was so heavy, it wouldn't come out." Kakashi placed a hand on his shoulder. His grip was firm. "We'll talk later. For now, we have a mission to finish." He turned to Tazuna, his eye hardening. "And you, Mr. Tazuna, we need to have a very serious talk about why these men were after you." The land of waves was a place of mist and misery. The air was thick with the scent of salt and rot, the unfinished bridge looming over the water like a skeleton. Tazuna's house was small and cramped, filled with the quiet tension of a family living in fear. After the first encounter with Zabuza Mamachi, a battle that had left Kakashi bedridden from overusing his Sharingan, the sensei had made a decision. "Training," Kakashi said from his bed, a book held weakly in his hand. "Zabuza is still alive. He'll be back in a week. If you want to survive, you need to learn how to walk." "Walk?" Naruto asked, confused. "We already know how to walk." "On trees," Kakashi clarified. The trio stood in a nearby grove. The task was simple: channel a constant amount of chakra to the soles of their feet and walk up the vertical trunks without using their hands. Sakura went first. She walked up the tree as if she were strolling through a park, stopping 10 feet up to wave down at them. "Wow, this is easy," she chirped. "Excellent control, Sakura," Kakashi called from the shade. Sasuke went next. He made it 5 feet before the bark exploded under his feet, sending him flipping back. He gritted his teeth and tried again. Then it was Naruto's turn. He stood before a gnarled cedar, its bark rough and gray. He closed his eyes, trying to find that ocean Mizuki had talked about. He focused the energy on his feet. He took a step. Thump! His foot didn't just stick, it sank. The moment his chakra touched the wood of the tree, it didn't stay on the surface. It dove deep. It was like his energy recognized the wood as a brother, a long-lost part of itself. The cedar groaned as Naruto's chakra flooded its system. Naruto tried to pull his foot away, but he was stuck. The tree was literally growing around his sandal. its bark curling over his toes in a slow, possessive embrace. Let go, Naruto tugged. Crack! A branch from high above suddenly grew 3 feet, snapping off and falling onto Naruto's head. Ow hey! Naruto, Kakashi said, leaning against a tree nearby. Stop fighting it. I'm trying, Naruto yelled, finally wrenching his foot free along with a chunk of bark. But it keeps grabbing me. It's like the tree is trying to eat my feet. It's not trying to eat you, Kakashi said, his eye thoughtful. It's trying to connect with you. Your chakra is wood release, Naruto. When you touch a tree, you're not just standing on it. You're feeding it. You're becoming part of it. Kakashi walked over and tapped the trunk. You're putting too much in. You're trying to dominate the tree so it reacts. You need to be light. You need to skim the surface, not dive into the roots. But it feels so heavy, Naruto whispered, looking at his hands. Every time I use it, it feels like I'm carrying a whole mountain on my back. That's because you are, Kakashi said quietly. You're carrying the legacy of the forest, and the forest is ancient. It doesn't move fast. It doesn't care about your hurry. The sun reached its zenith, but Naruto hadn't moved more than 5 feet up the trunk. Every time he tried to focus his chakra, the tree either tried to swallow his foot or grew a branch to smack him. Stupid tree, Naruto yelled, kicking the trunk. Just let me walk on you. He looked over at Sasuke, who was currently 8 feet up and looking infuriatingly focused. Then he looked at Sakura, who was napping on a high branch, her book covering her face. Naruto gritted his teeth. If the tree won't let me walk on it, I'll just make my own path. He closed his eyes and pushed. He didn't focus on sticking. He focused on reaching. Growth up step. Suddenly his foot felt solid. He took another step, then another. He wasn't even touching the vertical bark anymore. He was walking up the air. Hey, look at me, Naruto cheered, his hands behind his head. I'm doing it, I'm a natural. Sasuke opened one eye and blinked. Naruto wasn't walking on the tree. He was walking on a series of small, flat wooden platforms that were erupting from the trunk directly beneath his sandals. Every time he took a step, a new stump grew out to meet him, creating a spiral staircase of gnarled wood. Naruto, Kakashi's voice came from the ground, sounding dangerously calm. Check it out, Kakashi-sensei. I'm a genius. I didn't even need to learn that sticky foot stuff. Naruto was currently 15 feet up, leaning back as if he were on a balcony. That's called cheating, Kakashi said. It's not cheating, it's creative use of resources. No, Kakashi said, his hand forming a single seal. It's laziness, and in the field, laziness gets you killed. Also, you're killing that tree. Look at it. Naruto looked down. The cedar was trembling. The stumps he had forced out were draining its sap, the bark around them turning gray and brittle. The tree looked exhausted. Oh, Naruto whispered, I didn't mean to. And for your creativity, Kakashi said, you get a lesson in gravity. Kakashi flicked a small stone. It hit a specific knot on the tree. Snap! The connection between Naruto's stumps and the trunk instantly withered. The platforms vanished into sawdust. Whhhh. Naruto plummeted. He hit the ground with a loud thwack, face first in the dirt. Kakashi appeared above him, looking down with a bored expression. If I see one more stump, I'm tying you to the bridge and letting the seagulls use you as a perch. Use your chakra to walk, Naruto, not to build a ladder. Now, do it again. Naruto groaned into the dirt, his butt sticking up in the air. I hate this mission. Night fell, the mist turning silver under the moon. Naruto was still at the trees. His legs were shaking, his orange jacket stained with sap and dirt. He had made it 10 feet up, but every step was a battle. He felt the weight in his bones, a deep, resonant ache that made his muscles feel like they were made of lead. Sasuke was nearby, panting. He had made it to the first branch, but he was clearly exhausted. He sat at the base of his tree, watching Naruto. You're doing it wrong, Sasuke said. Naruto jumped, nearly falling. "Shut up, Sasuke, I'm getting there." "No, you're not," Sasuke said, standing up. He walked over to Naruto's tree. "You're trying to walk up it like a person, but you're not just a person, are you? Not with that power." Sasuke reached out and touched the spot where Naruto had scarred the bark. "This wood. It's different where you touched it, it's harder, more vibrant, even the leaves look greener." He looked at Naruto, his dark eyes filled with a strange, burning intensity. "Is that what it's like, to have a clan legacy that just works, even when you don't want it to?" Naruto sat down, leaning his back against the tree. He felt the bark thrum against his spine. "It doesn't work, Sasuke. It's a pain in the butt. I wanted to be like everyone else. I wanted to make cool clones and throw fire, but instead I make things grow. And it hurts. It feels like my own blood is turning into sap." Sasuke looked away, staring into the dark forest. "My clan. They're all dead. I'm the only one left. Everything I have, the Sharingan, the fire style, it's all I have left of them. It's a burden, but it's a burden I want. I'd give anything to have something as heavy as yours if it meant they were still here." Naruto looked at his rival. For the first time, he didn't see the cool guy who had everything. He saw a boy who was just as lonely as he was, maybe lonelier. "I don't have a clan," Naruto said softly. "I don't even know who my parents were. All I know is that this power. It feels like it's been waiting for me for a long time, but I'm scared of it, Sasuke. In the forest with Mizuki, I didn't feel like me. I felt like a storm." Sasuke sat down next to him. The two boys sat in silence for a long time, the only sound the rustle of the leaves and the distant lapping of the waves. "If you're a storm," Sasuke said eventually, "then I'll have to be the one who stands through it. I'm not going to let you get ahead of me just because you can grow some weeds." Naruto grinned, a tired, genuine thing. "Weeds? You're calling the First Hokage power weeds? Until you can walk up a tree without breaking it. Yeah, they're weeds." Naruto laughed, the sound bright in the misty night. He stood up, his legs still shaky, but the weight felt a little more manageable now. It wasn't just his burden anymore. "Fine then, Uchiha," Naruto said, clasping his hands together. "Watch me. I'm gonna reach the top before you. In your dreams, dead last." They spent the rest of the night under the trees, two orphans trying to carry the weight of their ancestors. Every time Naruto stepped, the tree groaned. Every time Sasuke fell, he cursed, but they kept going. High above, Kakashi watched from a hidden branch. He saw the way the trees seemed to lean toward Naruto, as if acknowledging a master. He saw the way Sasuke's eyes never left his teammate. "They're starting to lean on each other," Kakashi thought. "Good, because when we hit the bridge, they're going to need all the support they can get." He looked at his own hands, his fingers tracing the scar on his left eye. He thought of his own team, of Obaido, of Rin. "Minato-sensei," Kakashi whispered. "They're stronger than we were, but the forest, it's hungry. I hope I can keep them from being consumed." As the sun began to rise over the land of waves, Naruto finally reached the highest branch of the tallest cedar. He stood there, looking out over the mist-covered sea. The weight was still there, the heavy, ancient pulse of the wood release, but as he looked at the sunrise, it didn't feel like a cage. It felt like roots, and roots were what kept you standing when the wind started to howl.